My name is Biodegradable, and I'm your basic science teacher. We're here to learn the topic, environmental pollution. If you were asked to pick in which of these environments you would like to live in, which of them would it be? Would you like to live in this environment or in this environment? I like to live in this environment. It looks clean, it's peaceful, and I'm sure I'll be healthy staying here. What is an environment? An environment is the total surrounding of a living thing. Our environment is made up of both living and non-living things. Do you know you are in an environment? Look around you. There are different things that make up your environment. You may have your brother or your classmate by your side. That makes the living thing. The dogs, the cats, all living things. Your notebooks, the biros, the table, the chairs, all those other ones make up the non-living things in that your environment. What is pollution? Pollution can be defined as the process of making the environment dirty and unsafe for living things. It means that when things that are harmful are introduced into your environment, it is known as environmental pollution. You can see from our picture here, this environment is clean. But this environment is a very dirty one. It's a polluted environment. At the end of today's class, you should be able to define environmental pollution, state the types of environmental pollutions and their effects. You should also be able to give examples of pollutants. At the end of this class, you should be able to describe pollution control. What are pollutants? Remember, we said that pollution is the introduction of harmful substances into the environment. Pollutants are those harmful substances that cause pollution. For example, smoke. Have you ever been in an environment that is smoky? You notice that you begin to cough. You gradually begin to choke. That is a pollutant. Sewage. Remember that sewage is water that contains urine, feces, and all those excretors from man. We may or may not be able to see these pollutants. So don't always think that because I see it, then it's pollution. But when you don't see it, well, the environment is clean. It means that the environment may look clean, but there may be a form of pollution. What then do we do about this pollution? One thing we can do is to prevent it. It brings us to pollution prevention. What does pollution prevention mean? It refers to the different ways and practices that ensure that pollutants are not formed so that the environment is kept safe and clean for us. But this will be a little difficult to do because each and every other day, human activities generate waste products. Industries generate waste products. Environmental prevention looks at not forming these pollutants at all. Remember that if there are no pollutants, then there is no pollution at all. But how do we work that will not create pollutants? It's really difficult. That brings us to pollution control. Pollution control simply tries to minimize, that's to reduce, or put an end to the release. Not put an end to the production or the formation of pollutants, but to try to either reduce these pollutants formed, or when they are formed, they are not released. So it minimizes or puts an end to the release of pollutants into the air, water, land, or any other aspect of the environment. There are different types of environmental pollution. They include air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, soil pollution, and noise pollution. There are more types of pollution. we'll just be looking at air pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution for the purpose of this class. Air pollution, let's first define what air is. Air is simply the mixture of colorless and odorless gases found in the atmosphere. Air pollution, therefore, is said to occur when substances are released into the atmosphere in a way that can cause harm to a living thing. Examples of air pollutants include dust, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, insecticides. Remember that most of us in our houses, we use this insecticide. Remember that we said in a way, or if the substance itself is not a pollutant, there's the amount that will release into the air that becomes harmful. Then it becomes a pollutant. Because an insecticide on its own is not necessarily a pollutant. But we may release so much into the air that it becomes a pollutant. Some effects of air pollution include it can cause damage to crops. It can cause sicknesses. Imagine that in class, while you're learning, somebody throws in dust. You notice that people begin to cough and choke and all of that. Sometimes it even irritates your eyes. There are different kinds of air pollutants. And so these things give you different reactions. Sometimes we can be sick. It can cause suffocation or even lead to death. Someone left in a house alone with the exhaust of our generator, if the air from the generator or the smoke that comes out of the generator is channeled into the house and the house is closed, a person there will gradually choke, and if nothing is done about it, the person may die. So air pollution is very dangerous. What then do we do about air pollution? Let's talk about how we can control pollution. Remember that we said that it's not very easy to prevent pollution completely, but we can actually control it. It's easier to control it. The government can put in place policies or make laws that can help us control air pollution. Take, for instance, the government can say industries that produces gases or things that are air pollutants should find a way to keep these pollutants from getting into the air. That can be a policy put in place by the government, thereby reducing the quantity of pollutants in the air. People can also ensure that their environments are kept clean. Ensure that instead of leaving the floor, if you tile your ground, the floor of your environment, you will not have so much dust whooping up. Furthermore, you can also reduce the quantity of insecticide used. Remember I said insecticide on its own is not a pollutant. But when you release so much into the air, it becomes a pollutant. Have you ever been in a room and insecticide was used? Having opened the windows for a while, you still come back after a long time and the smell is still there. Then it means so much of it was released into the air. When we reduce the amount we use, it can reduce air pollution. We can also plant flowers and trees. And let's know that flowers use carbon dioxide when it's making its own food. So if there's so much carbon dioxide in the air, the flowers, the plant, the trees can take up this carbon dioxide and use it and release oxygen that is good for man, thereby keeping the air free from one type of pollutant known as carbon dioxide. Also, we can reduce bush burning. Bush burning is some other thing that causes air pollution, because as the bush burns, so many particles get into the air that are dangerous to living things. We can also dispose our refuse at the appropriate site. It will help us control air pollution. Let's look at water pollution. What is water? Water is a clear, colorless, odorless liquid. It forms rivers, lakes, seas. We see it everywhere around us. Now, water forms a very important part of both plants and animals. For instance, we drink water, we bathe with water, we wash with water, we even cook with water. How about plants? Remember that if you do not water a plant, a seed sown in the ground, it will never germinate because the plant needs water to grow. Even when it's grown, it still uses water. So water is very important to both plants and animals. Now, what is water pollution? Water pollution is the introduction of harmful substances into water, substances that are harmful to living things. Examples of water pollutants: oil, industrial waste, household waste, sewage, etc. Some effects of water pollution include there will be outbreak of different kinds of diseases. The typhoid disease, one of the causes of typhoid is water pollution. When the water is polluted, it can actually cause typhoid. It can also cause dysentery. It can cause cholera and so many more. It can also result to lack of clean drinking water. If you were asked to take this cup of water, would you? Nah, I won't. Because it doesn't look clean. It will be harmful to my body. It can cause loss of job. You'll be wondering how. Remember that the fishermen go to the rivers to fish. When the river is polluted, remember that pollution is usually harmful to living things. The living things, which include the fishes that the fishermen are going to fish, they may just die because of that pollution. Now, when these fishes are dead, what will they fish? There will be no more fish for the fisherman to fish. That's sad. It may also lead to death. Some of these sicknesses and diseases may not go easily, or if not properly handled, may lead to death. What then do we do about water pollution? We can actually control it. One of the ways we can control water pollution is by ensuring we turn off running water. Why? Because when you turn off running water, it reduces the quantity of sewage waste that you produce. When we are not using the water that comes from the tap, it's best practice to turn off the tap. For example, while washing our teeth, sometimes we turn on the water because we wanted to take a little to wet our paste. But after we have done that, we don't turn off the tap. We keep brushing and the water keeps flowing away. That water goes into the septic tank and then, together with the feces and the urine, make up a larger quantity than necessary of sewage waste. So we can help by turning off the running water to reduce the quantity of sewage waste we produce. We can also control water pollution by using the correct quantity of fertilizers. Why? When fertilizers are put on the plant uses as much as it needs to grow better. But so many more will be there, and when the rains fall, it washes it off into a larger water body. Those fertilizers are not good for our water bodies. We can also keep our environment clean. This can also help ensure that our water is not polluted. How? Maybe we do not dispose our dirt properly, and the point where we put all this waste together, when rain falls, it washes some of this waste into the river. Inside the river, these pollutants begin to affect the fishes there. We can also do that by properly disposing our household waste. We can also control water pollution by educating people about the effects of water pollution and how to prevent it. Now let's look at soil pollution. What is soil? The soil can be defined as the top layer of the surface of the earth. I'm sure we know this. And soil is very important to living things because, first and foremost, our plants grow on top of the soil. Human beings, we need these plants. Animals need plants. We all need plants to survive. Therefore, we should ensure that our soil is protected. Soil pollution is the introduction of substances or objects into the soil that can cause harm to living organisms. These substances include industrial waste, agricultural chemicals like fertilizers and pesticides. Fertilizers, when applied to the soil, if applied in excess, instead of helping the soil, begins to pollute the soil. Our pesticides also. We can also see improperly disposed domestic waste affecting our soil. Crude oil spills, sewage, lead, etc. Let's quickly talk about something before we continue with soil pollution. We'll be looking at biodegradable and non-biodegradable substances. What are biodegradable substances? These are substances that can decay easily and become part of the environment. For example, food waste. Another example, animal waste. Those are biodegradable substances because when poured on top of the soil, after a while, it decays. You no longer can find it there. But non-biodegradable substances are substances that cannot be broken down easily. For example, our plastic bottles, our glasses, ceramics, they are all non-biodegradable substances. The disadvantages of non-biodegradable substances is that when you put biodegradable waste in a particular place, after a very long time, they still remain there, causing pollution. But biodegradable substances, when left alone for a while, they gradually decay and so do not cause so much harm as much as the non-biodegradable substances to our soil. Now, what's the effect of all the soil pollution? It can cause sicknesses such as cancer, skin diseases, etc. It can also cause the fertility of the soil. It can lead to death of the living things found in the environment. You can see our pig here that's probably eating something it should not have eaten from our waste here. How do we control soil pollution? We can control soil pollution by keeping our environment clean. We can also control soil pollution by reducing the quantity of dirt we produce. Then you wonder how. When at home, we do not generate so much waste. We have little waste as pollutants. But the more the waste we create and generate in our homes, the more the household waste we'll have to try to dispose of. How can you reduce waste? Imagine that we do not need to tear our books. We do not need a piece of paper to do anything important, and we'll rip our books into pieces. Do you know that at the end of the day, those pieces of papers, we'll just trash them? One way we can reduce soil pollution or reduce the production of waste is by avoiding doing those things that will not be useful, like tearing our books, spoiling things, because as soon as that thing is spoiled, all we can do is trash it. We can also recycle our trash. Recycling simply means reinventing something out of another thing. For instance, metals. When we gather metals from a particular thing that we're not using anymore, it can be melted and used to form something else. That is recycling. It simply means converting waste into reusable material. When we do that, we reduce the amount of dirt that we produce. We can also reuse previously used materials. What do I mean by this? When you use a carrier bag to the market, when we come back, instead of throwing it away and tomorrow you buy another one to use, you can fold that one neatly and use it another time. Remember that if you had trashed that one you used today and you bought another one tomorrow and you still trashed it, you are increasing the amount of dirt produced. But when you reuse it, it saves and reduces the amount of dirt that we produce. We can also control soil pollution by properly disposing our trash at the appropriate sites. Reuse, reduce, and recycle. Safe for the environment. Another way to control soil pollution is by seeing that our government put policies in place to ensure this. For instance, the environmental sanitation days allotted to different states to ensure people come out to clean their environment is one of the ways the government can put policies in place to see that we clean our environment. We've come to the end of today's class, but before we go, let's go through what we have learned today. Environmental pollution is the introduction of harmful substances into the environment. Pollution prevention, this refers to the practices that hinder the formation of pollutants in order to keep the environment healthy for all living things. Pollution control, on the other hand, refers to the process of reducing or putting an end to the release of pollutants into the environment. There are some types of pollution. They include air pollution, noise pollution, land pollution, soil pollution, etc. Biodegradable substances are those substances that can decay easily, while non-biodegradable substances are substances that cannot decay easily. Let's ask ourselves a question. Dash refers to the different ways and practices that hinder the formation of pollutants in order to keep the environment healthy for all living things. Option A, pollution prevention. B, pollution control. C, pollutant disposal. Yes, if your answer is pollution prevention, then you're correct. Because we said pollution prevention hinders the formation of pollutants. Thank you.